السلام عليكم، مرحبا بكم في قناتكم ذا بروفيسور. النهاردة معانا بارت 2، الجزء الثاني من سونيت 18 للرائع ويليام شكسبير. كنا اتكلمنا في الجزء الأول عن ملاحظات عن القصيدة، وهتسيب لكم رابط للجزء الأول في التعليقات. وخلينا نشوف شعارنا الأول قبل ما نبدأ في الفيديو: The more you listen, the more you speak, and the more you read, the more you write. وخلونا نتابع الفيديو.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou oust, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growst. So long as men can breathe, or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
So some side notes: it has a very simple rhyme scheme, and Shakespeare used this rhyme scheme in all of his sonnets, and this poem is written in iambic pentameter. So I'm going to divide this each into quatrains and the couplet. So beginning with the first quatrain: shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Shakespeare, he begins with a question: is it a good idea to compare you to a summer's day? And this creates a metaphor which will be used throughout the poem between summer and his beloved. Thou art more lovely and more temperate. So he's saying you are more lovely, more beautiful, and you're more temperate, which means consistently milder and calmer. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. So the darling buds in this line can symbolize beauty. And because summer might be sporadic, the rough winds will destroy the darling buds. So beauty will be destroyed, and therefore beauty of summer is not everlasting. And summer's leaf hath all too short a date. So this means summer's way too short. And it kind of personifies summer as in summer is taking out a lease with nature. And this lease has an expiration date that's just way too short. So the second quatrain: sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines. So the eye of heaven is a metaphor for the sun, and sometimes it might be too hot. And often is his gold complexion dimmed. So sometimes the sun is dimmed or blocked by the clouds. And every fair from fair sometime declines. So eventually, this means everything that's beautiful will come to an end. And there's also some alliteration here in fair from fair, each word starting with the consonant F. By chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. So beauty will end either by bad luck or by the will of nature. And untrimmed in the sentence can mean lack of ornament or decoration. There's also consonants in here between chance and nature's and changing, which emphasizes the sound ch. So the third quatrain. Now I want to just point out that in this third quatrain, the poem takes a different tone of voice, as if Shakespeare's beloved is summer, instead of just comparing. So he's saying, but thy eternal summer shall not fade. So he's saying your eternal summer shall not fade, and summer as in its most beautiful state. So your beauty will never fade, nor lose possession of that fair thouest. So you will not lose your beauty, unlike summer. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade. Death won't be able to brag about you, because usually death will brag about its conquest over life, but because, well, as Shakespeare will later explain, I've written this poem about you, and death won't be able to claim you. There's also personification of death, since death is bragging. When in eternal lines to time thou growest. Eternal lines, it's a metaphor for poetry, and he's saying, in these eternal lines, you will grow as time grows on. So to end with this couplet, he's saying, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so as long as there's people on this earth and they can read, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. This is the poem. And he's saying as long as people read it, this poem will live on forever. Now the interesting part of this is that he's saying this poem gives life to you. Shakespeare's saying that because I've written this poem about you, your beauty has been immortalized forever. So no matter what happens, no matter if the rough winds destroy the darling buds of May, or if summer's lease is too short, it won't matter because I've written this poem about you. And that's why death can't brag about you.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometimes declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe, or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
Paraphrase. Shall I compare you to a summer's day? You are more beautiful and gentle. Stormy winds will shake the Mayflowers, and summer lasts for too short of a time. Sometimes the sun is too hot, and many times it is overcast, and everything beautiful eventually decays, either by some unforeseen circumstance or nature's course. But your beauty will never fade, or lose its inherent loveliness. Even death will not be able to claim you, when in my eternal poetry you will grow. As long as there are people who see and breathe, this will live and give you life. Modern text. Shall I compare you to a summer day? You're lovelier and milder. Rough winds shake the pretty buds of May, and summer doesn't last nearly long enough. Sometimes the sun shines too hot, and often its golden face is darkened by clouds. And everything beautiful stops being beautiful, either by accident or simply in the course of nature. But your eternal summer will never fade, nor will you lose possession of your beauty, nor shall death brag that you are wandering in the underworld, once you're captured in my eternal verses. As long as men are alive and have eyes with which to see, this poem will live and keep you alive.
We are going to discuss a famous sonnet by William Shakespeare. We are having a sonnet of William Shakespeare, Shall I Thee Compare? Before going to the sonnet, first of all, let's analyze the sonnet. What is there in the sonnet? As that I told you, it is a sonnet, so obviously first of all we will give lines to it. It has 14 lines. Second thing, to understand this piece of poetry, William Shakespeare's sonnet, first thing we got to know is that we have 14 lines in the sonnet. Second thing, we'll talk about the rhyming scheme of this sonnet. Let's go with the first two lines. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day, thou art more lovely and more temperate. As such, we can see from these two lines, the last here and this one, they have different rhymes. So here we can place a rhyming scheme to be identified by A and here by B. Coming to next two lines, rough winds to shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Here again, the day is rhyming with May, so it will be A, and temperate is rhyming with date, so this will be B. For these four lines, we have A, B as the rhyming scheme. Coming to the next quadrant, sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. Again, here we have different rhyme for these two lines, so we will place different symbols for these two. Coming next to line number 7 and 8, and every fair from fair sometimes decline, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. Here the shines is somehow rhyming with decline, so we will place the symbol C here, and by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed, this untrimmed is rhyming with dimmed, so it is D. So for this quadrant we have C, D, C, D as the rhyming scheme. Coming to the next portion is, but thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. That means here again the rhyming scheme has changed. Let's place alphabet E for this and alphabet F for this. Going to the next two, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou groused. Here we can see the fade is rhyming with shade, so it will be placed E here, and the oust is going with groused, so we'll be placing F. So for these four lines we have a rhyming scheme of E, F, E, F. The last two, as such we have seen by analyzing the rhyming scheme, what we had a four line quadrant, then again a 4-line quadrant, and last is a 2-line couplet. In this 2-line couplet we have a rhyming scheme of C and D. That means both are different. So we can place this alphabetical symbol for this rhyming scheme. So this is the rhyming scheme first of all for this sonnet of Shakespeare, where he has placed A, B, C, D, E, F, and G for the couplet in the end.
Shall I compare